Greetings, I'm Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, and welcome back to this review channel, very much providing the flying wheelie bin of criticism in the Force 12 gale of discourse. And I want to pre-remind you to subscribe and leave a pert comment. It's time now for that lovely returning feature on this channel, where on browsing in the wildflower meadow of culture, we chance across something rather lovely. It's Serendipity Corner. This week I've been reading Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck, an author I'm only just catching up with, translated by that formidable writer and critic Michael Hoffman, whose father Gert Hoffman's novel The Film Explainer I have vlogged about in the past. Kairos is set in the late 80s in Soviet-era East Berlin, and of course all novels and films on that subject always have their own nostalgie. They're almost always set in East Berlin, not boring old West Berlin. It's here that Hans is a middle-aged career intellectual, a novelist with the right opinions, or at any rate able to conceal the wrong opinions, whose income depends on the regular plays and talks he's commissioned to write for state radio. He's married with a son to a woman whom he expects to ignore his repeated infidelities with younger women. Hans is cynical and melancholy, someone who's almost forgotten what it felt like to believe in the communism which has ground the entire nation down, aware of how compromised and even corrupt he is, but aware also that he has an idealism and an intellectual seriousness about philosophy, music and art which could only be nurtured on his side of the wall. One evening he meets Katerina, a beautiful and studious woman young enough to be his daughter, and they begin a passionate affair, which sours when she honestly and miserably admits to a brief, unserious fling with a young man who's a set designer at a theatre where she's doing a kind of internship. Their sex always had an element of kink and BDSM, in which she is submissive, and maybe it hardly needs to be said that though descriptions of women's bodies by male authors in the Updike Roth tradition is now very unfashionable indeed in literary fiction, extravagantly and disturbingly submissive straight sex for women is still acceptable from female authors like Erpenbeck and Rooney. That kink shades into abuse and coercive control. Hans is furiously, impotently obsessed with Katerina's supposed betrayal of him and everything he stands for. Though as a married man, he hardly has the moral high ground. And this betrayal comes into parallel with the young people of Katerina's generation betraying their elders, abandoning communism, and euphorically welcoming the collapse of the wall. Although one of the novel's structural and indeed comic effects is that Katerina and Hans are so depressed about their doomed love that they hardly notice the wall coming down. Katerina and Hans are pretty keen filmgoers, although it's very much serious state-sanctioned films they go and see. And one of these is The Naked Man on the Sports Field by that now very obscure figure in European cinema, Konrad or Konrad Wolf, an East German director who has the distinction of being the second most compromised German filmmaker in history, in that his brother was Markus Wolf, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Stasi, the East German secret police. Hans very much approves of Wolf's film, incidentally, which is about a difficult, cantankerous, high-minded artist who refuses to compromise. I've not been able to track this film down yet, but on YouTube you can stream without charge, and this kind of accessibility is kind of the point of Serendipity Corner, the film which is thought to be Wolf's masterpiece, Ich war 19, or I Was 19, from 1968, a remarkable semi-autobiographical film with some documentary footage about Wolf's own youth. His communist father took him and the family to Moscow when Hitler became German Chancellor in 1933, and during the war, Wolf volunteered for the Red Army as a teenager and was sent to the front at 19. In this film, Wolf's fictional alter ego is Gregor Hecker, who's with the Red Army as they storm through Germany, and his usefulness as translator sees him promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And this 19-year-old is made commandant of the captured town of Bernau near Berlin. His comrades are astonished at his fluent, idiomatic German, and did not until this moment realise that he actually is German. The pathetically beaten-down German civilians and military personnel can hardly credit it either. Is he an Ivan, a Russian invader, or one of them? When one German officer asks to phone his superior for permission to surrender, Hecker takes the phone to assert his own credentials as a high-ranking Red Army officer, and the German on the other end of the line can hardly believe it, leading to chaos.
Bitte den Offizier vom Dienst.
Hauptmann Schmidt.
Major Behrendt. Hauptmann Schmidt, ich habe Ihnen eine außergewöhnliche Meldung zu erstatten. Unsere Dienststelle ist soeben von der russischen Armee besetzt worden. Ich bitte mich in russische Gefangenschaft abmelden zu wollen.
Was?
Meine Dienststelle ist soeben von der russischen Armee überrollt worden.
Die Russen bei Ihnen? Das ist doch völliger Blödsinn.
Würden Sie meine Meldung bitte bestätigen?
Hier Leutnant Hecker, mit dem spreche ich.
Hacker? Kenn ich nicht.
Ich bin Leutnant der Roten Armee und...
Seid ihr dort alle besoffen? Bei uns gehört der Iwan und ihr lasst euch in Ruhe volllaufen. Geben Sie mir sofort den Major.
Passen Sie jetzt mal genau auf.
Hier ist Starший Leutnant Цыганюк. Und du bist... Ядрить твою в бога душу мать, гитлеровская сволочь, катись ты к ядрене матери. Алло! Алло! Bitte schön.
His unit arrives at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, and at this stage a documentary clip shows a low-ranking German worker demonstrating how the gas chambers worked. Elsewhere they encounter an intellectual who explains how the Germans were always submissive and conformist, and that Nazism merely accentuated it, causing an artificially induced frenzy of obedience, a very good description of fascism. At the Spandau fortress, Gregor and a comrade have to approach the cornered SS unit, whose actual commander is in hiding, to discuss the terms of surrender. At a May Day celebration, Gregor's unit offer hospitality to their pro-Russian German partisans, and these are the kind of people who risked being hung with a placard to terrify others, like a corpse we see at the very beginning of the film. And as the war ends, Gregor witnesses the crazy chaos of Russian tank commanders getting drunk and firing on their own side, and finally a last-ditch fanatical assault by a rogue SS unit. And he is only 19, and everything unfolds like a bizarre dream. It's a very powerful movie, perhaps an influence on The Tin Drum, whose director Volker Schlöndorff admired Wolf. It should also be said that the mass rape of German women by Russian soldiers, which became widely known after the war, nowhere features in this film. Did Wolf not know anything about that? Maybe, maybe not. But it's replete with Becker's own complex sense of tribal disloyalty, a cousin to the feeling in Erpenbeck's book. What an amazing film. And now, an announcement. I'm here in Hornsey, in London's North London, and I'm outside Hornsey Library, very much the flagship of the Haringey Council Library's fleet, because it's here, on Sunday the 20th of October at 5 p.m, that I shall be reading from my new book, The Body in the Mobile Library and Other Stories, and afterwards signing copies at a mouth-watering bargain basement discount. Now, you might be thinking, that's nice, Pete. Good luck with that. But I don't need luck. I need you to be there. I need you to show a real commitment to me and my book. So fix your attitude and click on the link for tickets. And that's it. Please give this vlog a like and a share. Please subscribe and leave a comment telling me what you're enjoying at the movies right now. And if you can't make it to my Hornsey Library reading, well, please buy my book anyway, The Body in the Mobile Library and Other Stories. Get it online or in an actual shop. See you next week.